All right, Honors Algebra 2, College Algebra in general. Let's take a look here at your 4446 game plan. This is page 9. We're starting with solving quadratics review. Solve each equation number 1 here. One you want to do by simple factoring. What multiplies to 80 and differs by 2. X minus 10, x plus 8 equals 0. Cover-up method. X minus 10 is 0. X plus 8 is 0. Your two solutions of 10 and negative 8. Let's take a look at number 2. 2x squared plus 50 is 0. Anytime you have an x squared, which we do here, and a constant with no middle term, move that constant over. You have 2x squared is equal to a negative 50. You're going to divide both sides by 2. Now you have x squared is equal to a negative 25. You're going to take the square root of both sides. Don't forget about the plus or minus. Square root of negative. You got to make sure you take the I out. I root 25 is 5i because root 25 is 5i. Number 2, big example of the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. The opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4. What's attached to x squared? A. Constant 9. 4 minus 36 is a negative 32. Take the I out. 2 plus or minus I root 32 over 2. For some of you, if you type in the square root of 32, you get roughly 5.64. You can stay there. Stop there. The square root of 32, though, is 4 root 2. Put the I there. You could divide this 2, that 4, and that 2 by 2 as well, and call it 1 plus or minus 2i root 2. That 2 in radical jail, you cannot divide it by anything. All right, we take a look at number 7. What multiplies 25 adds to a negative 10. It's negative 5 and negative 5. That has one answer. X equals 5. Please don't use the quadratic formula there. On 8, you could factor. It is 3x minus 5, x plus 4 equals 0. So you'll get x equals 5/3 and x equals negative 4. Or you can use the quadratic formula. X equals the opposite of the middle term, plus or minus the square root of the middle term squared, minus 4 times a times c, all over 2 times a. You get 49 plus 240. That's 289 in the square root. Well, the square root of 289 is 17. So we have negative 7 plus or minus 17 over 6. We've got to spend some time breaking it down. Negative 7 plus 17 over 6. That's the 5/3. Negative 7 minus 17 over 6. That's the negative 4. So if you use the quadratic formula on equation, you can solve by factoring. You're going to spend some extra time simplifying. All right, so let's go to page 10 here. Let's take a look at one like number 11. What multiplies to 7 and differs by 6? We have a negative 7 and a positive 1. X minus 7, x plus 1 is 0. Cover-up method, x minus 7 is 0. X plus 1 is 0. Those are your two answers. All right, take a look at 14. 14 is 1. We're going to try to factor first. What multiplies to 9 and adds to 4? What multiplies to 9? 9 and 1, 3 and 3. Neither of those pairs add to 4, so I have to use the quadratic formula. X equals the opposite of the middle term, plus or minus the square root of the middle term squared, minus 4 times a times the constant c, all over 2a. Again, a is what's attached to x squared. That is 1. We have 4 minus 36. That's a negative 32. That is I root 32. Again, square root of 32, just like before, is a decimal. You can simplify it to be that. All right, let's take a look at 15. Man, 15 does look like it could factor. So a lot of students are thinking, oh, negative 4 and 2. But negative 4 times 2 is a negative 8, and you have a positive 8 here. So we are going to need to use the quadratic formula. X equals the opposite of the middle term, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c, all over 2a. You have 4 minus 32, which is the square root of negative 28. That is I root 28. Root 28 is a decimal, 5.28-ish. It's also 2 root 7, so put the I right after 2. Again, you can divide this by 2. You can say 1 plus or minus I root 7, but either of these answers are fine for this year. Page 11, pretty easy page, arithmetic with complex numbers. We're going to write numbers in the form a plus bi. So the real part first, 7 plus 2 is 9. Negative 3i plus 8i is 5i. Now on 6, let's distribute, i.e. FOIL here. So we're going to multiply 2 times 3, 2 times the negative I, 5i times 3, 5i times the negative I. Negative 2i plus 15i is 13i. I squared is a negative 1. So I'm going to call that now plus 5. 6 plus 5 is 11. 11 plus 3i. Now, sometimes I don't need, when I'm multiplying, to do first, outer, inner, last, all of it. I can, if I have conjugates, which I have here, 6, 6, 2i, 2i, opposite signs in between, I can just do the first and the last part of FOIL because the outer and inner part will give me negative 12i plus 12i, and those will cancel. So 6 minus 4i squared. I squared is a negative 1. A negative times a negative is a positive. So I have 36 plus 4, which is 40. All right. On 10, 7 plus 11 is 18. 3i plus a negative 7i is minus 4i. 11, 5 minus I, 5 minus I. 25 minus 5i minus 5i plus I squared. Now I squared is a negative 1. I'm in debt 5i, lose 5i more. I'm in debt 10i, so the i's don't cancel there. And 8 minus 6 is 2. 4 minus a negative 7 is 11i. All right, we 14 there, no answers there. So let's take a look here at page 15. Again, in all classes 3 through 6, just write free points. You don't have to do them. Just write free points. We'll talk about them at the end of the year. We'll talk about conic sections. Half the middle term there would be negative 9 over 2. So if I square negative 9 over 2, negative 9 squared is 81. 2 squared is 4. So that's the value of C. What in the world multiplies to 81 over 4 and adds to a negative 9? Just always half the middle term. Negative 9 over 2 plus a negative 9 over 2 gives me negative 9. When I multiply them together, I get 81 over 4. So got a fraction involved, but that is how that factors. Again, Algebra 2, Honors Algebra 2, we would have done this in class yesterday, or I may do a video. For Algebra 2, we're just going to solve, we're going to set the, solve each equation. We're going to change it to an equal sign. Solve. This is for Algebra 2 only. Honors Algebra 2, I either made a video and sent it to you directly, or we did this in class yesterday. All right? Here we are, page 20. Factor that. Don't use the quadratic formula. What multiplies to 3 and adds to a negative 4? X minus 3, x minus 1 equals 0. I get my two solutions of 3 and 1. On number 3, I'm going to move that 25 over again to solve this quadratic, especially when I have a middle term and I'm not taking square roots. I need this set equal to 0. Again, I'm looking for the x-intercepts when it crosses the x-axis, when y is 0. Well, multiplies to 25 and adds to 10, x plus 5, x plus 5, x equals a negative 5. Let's take a look at 5. The middle term is a negative 6, so the opposite of b, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You have 36 minus 44. Where are we at here? So we're at here. 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 8 over 2. You better take the I out. Don't forget about the I. So some of you are going to leave it right here. Okay, so I root 8. For some of you, root 8 is like 2.81, 2.82. Others, you know, it is 2 root 2. So you can put the I there, 2I root 2. Again, you can call it 3 plus or minus I root 2 is another one. But this one or that one is fine for this year. And finishing up here, number 7. It looks like it wants to factor what multiplies to 3. So as people are saying, oh, it's negative 3 and 1. That adds to a negative 2. It does, but negative 3 times 1 is a negative 3. So this cannot factor. So x equals the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. 4 minus 12 is a negative 8 on the inside. That's I root 8. So 1 plus or minus I root 2 is also an acceptable answer. Either of those are fine. Lastly, numbers. So 8, you're going to 6 and 8, you're going to use the quadratic formula. On number 9 here is an example 1. You're probably going to use the quadratic formula. That's why I'm doing it here, but it can factor. So the opposite of b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. So 16 plus 48 is 64. So you have 4 plus or minus the square root of 64 over 8. The square root of 64 is 8. So you have 4 plus or minus 8 over 8. That's 4 plus 8 over 8, which is 12 over 8, which is 3 over 2. That is 4 minus 8 over 8, which is a negative 4 over 8, which is a negative 1/2. All right, again, this could have factored if you wanted to. Folks, I think that is it. You have a lot of answers at least given to you here. This is Yak Math Videos signing out.